The year was 1967, and the sleepy town of Cedar Falls, Oregon woke to a chill that would never fade. Beneath the soft hum of streetlights and the scent of wet asphalt, a storm was brewing, one that would echo through generations. Louisa Dunne, a young schoolteacher known for her kindness, vanished without a trace after leaving her classroom one rainy afternoon. Her car was found idling by the roadside, keys still in the ignition, the radio humming softly, as if time itself had stopped mid-song. No one could understand it. No struggle. No witnesses, just silence. For days, police scoured the forests, the rivers, the fields, but Louisa had evaporated. Whispers began to swirl in cafes and church pews. Was it jealousy, revenge, or something darker that took her? Behind the calm faces of Cedar Falls hid secrets that were never meant to surface. And somewhere in those shadows a predator watched, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Decades would pass before anyone dared reopen the case. But when they did, every photograph, every fingerprint, and every hidden note would expose the truth. That Louisa Dunne's death wasn't a crime of passion. It was a crime of power. And it all began on that cold November night when her car's engine refused to die. The first clue came from the past itself. A faded photograph of Louisa smiling in front of Cedar Falls Elementary, sunlight bouncing off her auburn hair. To the world she was gentle, full of dreams, and deeply in love with her fiancé, a young police officer named Ryland Headley. Their story was the picture of innocence until the day it turned to horror. When Louisa disappeared, Ryland became the prime suspect. Rumors spread that they'd argued days before, that jealousy had taken root in his heart. Yet as detectives dug deeper, nothing added up. Louisa's students remembered her crying in class, clutching an anonymous note that read, "You know too much." But who was warning her? And about what? Years later, when a modern forensics team reopened the cold case, they unearthed something chilling. A match for Louisa's blood on an old police badge buried near the river. And stamped on the back of that badge was a date that didn't belong to 1967, but to 2025. The investigation spiraled into a labyrinth of secrets. Ryland Headley was still alive, an old man confined to a nursing home, silent for nearly 5 decades. When Detective Mara Jensen approached him, his eyes trembled with recognition. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. His trembling hand reached for a stack of faded letters he'd kept hidden beneath his bed for years. Inside them were Louisa's desperate words, written days before she vanished. She'd uncovered something dangerous within the Cedar Falls Police Department, a trail of corruption involving false arrests and missing funds. And she'd trusted Ryland with the truth. The last letter ended abruptly. "They know. If I disappear, it wasn't him." When Jensen showed the letters to the prosecutors, the silence in the room was suffocating. After all this time, the man accused of murder might have been trying to protect the woman he loved. From his own colleagues, Cedar Falls was no longer the quiet town it once was. With every headline, old wounds reopened. The courthouse overflowed with reporters, faces pressed against the glass, desperate to see the frail man who had carried guilt for half a century. Ryland's eyes were hollow as he faced the jury, his voice breaking as he confessed. Not to murder, but to something far worse. "I buried her body," he said softly, "but I didn't kill her." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. He told them he'd found Louisa lifeless in the woods, a bruise on her temple, her blood staining his badge. He'd panicked, knowing the police would blame him, so he hid the body to protect her dignity and the truth. But before he could say more, Ryland collapsed. That night, Detective Jensen studied the old case files again. One name kept reappearing: Captain Vernon Hale, Ryland's superior. He was the officer who had declared Louisa's case unsolvable. Suddenly, Jensen realized something terrifying. The silence of Cedar Falls wasn't born from ignorance. It was built on loyalty. Determined to uncover the truth, Jensen tracked down Captain Hale, now in his 80s, living near the Oregon coast. His home was a time capsule of the past, framed medals, dusty photographs, and one locked cabinet that he refused to discuss. She pressed him, asking what really happened that night. His hand shook as he reached for a key hidden beneath an old photo of his squad. Inside the cabinet lay a box labeled Maple Creek Evidence. Jensen opened it slowly. Inside were photos, torn uniforms, and Louisa's missing diary. Hale's voice trembled. She found something in the department. She wasn't supposed to. Before he could continue, his eyes rolled back and he clutched his chest. The paramedics couldn't save him. Jensen held Louisa's diary in her trembling hands. Its final entry read, "He's not the monster they say he is. The real danger wears a badge." As word of Captain Hale's death spread, new pieces began to fall into place. Hidden behind his walls were microfilm rolls, financial records linking Cedar Falls police to a smuggling operation in the late 60s. Louisa had discovered it, and that discovery sealed her fate. Jensen's mind raced. Hale had confessed enough to suggest Ryland wasn't alone when he found Louisa. There was another officer that night, someone who had gone missing soon after. His name, Samuel Kent. But Kent's death certificate was a forgery. Surveillance records revealed someone using his identity in Portland in 2022. Armed with a warrant, Jensen followed the trail to a rotting cabin near the coast. Inside, on a table thick with dust, lay a tape recorder. She pressed play, and Samuel Kent's dying voice filled the room. "She knew about the chief," he rasped. "We couldn't let her talk. Ryland took the blame. But it was never him." The word struck Jensen like lightning. The chief. Louisa's father, Chief Marcus Dunne, had overseen the investigation. Could a father truly hide his daughter's murder? The possibility clawed at Jensen's mind. She reviewed the chief's archived reports, noticing a pattern. Key evidence had been erased, witnesses recanted, and files destroyed under his orders. Then she found something worse. A black and white photo of Marcus Dunne standing beside Hale, Ryland and Kent, taken the day before Louisa vanished. Her father had been the one who reassigned her case file, ensuring it would disappear into storage. The truth was unbearable. Louisa had died trying to expose corruption that reached her own bloodline. When Jensen visited the chief's old grave, she whispered, "Did you protect the law? Or yourself?" But before she could leave, a single Polaroid fluttered against the tombstone, her own image taken at the riverbank. Someone was watching her just as they'd watched Louisa. Fear turned into obsession. Jensen combed through every inch of the forest where Louisa was found. There, beneath tangled roots, she unearthed an old evidence box marked with a rusted D. Inside were pieces of a uniform, Louisa's father's badge. He hadn't just covered the murder. He had been there. A storm ripped through the sky as Jensen connected the dots. Ryland had confessed only to protect the secret of a system he couldn't fight. Hale, Kent, and Dunne each had played a role. The department that once promised justice had buried one of its own daughters to save itself. When Jensen returned home, a letter was waiting under her door. The handwriting was shaky, familiar. "You're getting too close," it said. "Let it rest or you'll join her." The message was unsigned, but a faint fingerprint smudged the corner, belonging to a man listed as dead since 1998, Samuel Kent. Days later, Jensen received an anonymous tip directing her to a hidden vault beneath the old police station. Inside, she discovered hundreds of photographs and confiscated items from long-closed cases, evidence suppressed to protect powerful men. And among them, Louisa's necklace tagged as unclaimed property. In the dim light, Jensen could almost feel Louisa's presence urging her forward. But as she documented the evidence, the lights flickered. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. She called out, but no one answered. The door slammed shut behind her. When it opened again, her laptop was gone, and in its place was a note. "The fourth man never sleeps." Jensen realized she wasn't just solving a murder. She was reopening a wound that someone had killed to keep sealed. And that someone was still alive. The revelation came at dawn. Tracing the paper from the note led her to a printing company once owned by the Dunne family. There she found ledgers proving Marcus Dunne had laundered police funds through the same business Louisa was investigating before her death. He had built his reputation on lies, his department on blood. As Jensen pieced together the puzzle, she understood Ryland's final act. His confession wasn't guilt, it was loyalty twisted by fear. He'd chosen silence over truth, hoping to protect the woman he loved from being remembered as a whistleblower who died by her father's hand. Standing before the courthouse where Ryland's verdict had just been read, Jensen vowed aloud, "I'll tell them everything. This ends now." But as she turned, a black car idled across the street, engine running, windows tinted. It drove away before she could reach it, leaving behind a single photograph on the pavement. It was Louisa smiling. Jensen returned to Louisa's grave one final time. The morning air was cold, heavy with rain. She placed Ryland's badge gently beside the headstone, whispering, "They can't hurt you anymore." The case that haunted generations was finally over, or so she thought. Her phone buzzed. One new message. It was a photo of Louisa's grave, taken just moments earlier. Beneath it, the same haunting phrase from decades ago. "Some ghosts never rest." Jensen looked around, heart pounding, eyes scanning the mist-covered trees. Somewhere in the shadows of Cedar Falls, someone still watched, the last keeper of its darkest secret. As the screen faded to black, one chilling question lingered in every viewer's mind. How many secrets are still buried in your town? If this story pulled you into its darkness, don't stop now, because this was just one of many cases history tried to erase. And next time, the secret might not be 60 years old. It might be happening right now. Subscribe, because the truth doesn't die. It only waits for someone brave enough to find it.